Welcome back to Insomnia Recaps. Today I will show you a drama, thriller adventure film from 2005, titled Survival Island. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins with a woman named Jennifer, who struggles to swim towards the shores of a beach completely exhausted. She relaxes a bit and she's pulled into remembering how she got where she was. Then the story goes back to a few days before, where Jennifer and her husband Jack, and two friends were going on a Christmas holiday in a boat cruise they rented. Getting to the boat, they see a young, vibrant and attractive man named Manuel, who helps them with luggages. Later, Manuel is confronted by a woman named Maria, who even goes ahead to hit him because he plans on abandoning her because she's pregnant with his child. Manuel hits her back and sends her off and continued with his job. At dawn they have dinner. Jack decides to offer Manuel a drink since his girlfriend was giving him a hard time. Manuel finds this offending and declines Jack's offer. Before leaving, Jack calls Manuel names and continue to dine with his friends. Simultaneously, Maria was deep in the forest performing a voodoo ceremony on Manuel as she felt betrayed. She decided to ruin Manuel's life in return by performing witchcraft on him. When Jack decides to have a hormone sandwich with his wife, Manuel was disturbed by their noises as he was trying to read in the other room. After their sandwich, Maria performing voodoo on Manuel, hits Manuel handcrafted effigy and rage. This action caused Manuel, who is hundreds of miles away, to bleed. The next morning, Jack comes up to deck looking for Manuel with the beers he ordered. Manuel shows up with the beers and hands them over to Jennifer and her friend before handing Jack his. Jack complains Manuel has attitude towards him, so the captain decides to take care of the situation. He goes downstairs to know why Manuel didn't serve the drinks earlier, but they get into an argument. Manuel saying Jack doesn't have respect for anyone and never minded his own business. The captain decides to send Manuel offshore the next port in anger, since he couldn't serve customers and put his personal feelings aside. After Manuel packs his things, he steps back into the kitchen to take his goggles and pocket knife before subconsciously throwing away the handkerchief he held in the stove. At deck, the captain is teaching Jack how to fish. When the ladies on top saw fire, they notified the captain, who goes into the kitchen only to find out the whole place was on fire. He tried using a fire extinguisher, but the fire was already all over the place. He immediately went outside to let everyone know they would be abandoning the ship. At the cost of an unplanned abandoning, the ship exploded, leaving them to only their boats. At night, a strong storm capsized their boats and separated them. Jennifer was one of the few who survived the accident. Thinking about this, she sees the body of her captain and tries to save him. Suddenly, Manuel appears from nowhere and gives her a hand and tries performing CPR, but the captain had lost his life far long ago already. Later, Jennifer wakes up in a little shop Manuel made. She walks up to him to thank him. She also tries to get any information from Manuel if people would know they were missing. But unfortunately, Manuel tells her people could only know in a few weeks or even months, making Jennifer devastated. Manuel offers to build a hut just in case of heavy rain and to provide shelter against the sun. After a few days of working together and putting up tree branches and leaves, their little house is finally completed. To make Jennifer feel better, Manuel decides she goes to swimming with him naked. Jenny totally disagrees with him, but Manuel is very picky with his words, saying there's no one here so she shouldn't be shy. Jennifer goes into the sea without her clothes on. She asks Manuel some personal questions about his life and who the lady that hit him was. Manuel uses the opportunity to ask for a private question too, but Jenny gets upset and leaves him in the water. The next day, Manuel is going to the reef to fish for seafood. When Jenny goes to him and apologizes for yesterday, Manuel forgives her and continues his journey. When he comes back up with a lobster, he sees Jack laying unconscious offshore. He takes him back to the hut, where Jenny is happy and looks after him. Later, when Jack wakes up, he sees his wife and Manuel laughing together in the ocean as they tried catching a crab, and this pisses him off a lot. He lights a fire and waits for their return. While roasting a lobster Manuel caught, Manuel's feeling quite uncomfortable about Jack's presence, and so is Jack. Manuel takes his leave, leaving Jennifer to her husband. Jennifer tries to assure Jack that nothing had happened between Manuel and her, but Jack doesn't believe any of that. He still thinks there's some sort of secret connection between the two of them. He didn't want to believe they had been together and nothing had transpired. Later, Jack goes to Jennifer, who is done swimming, to apologize to her for his attitude. Jennifer tells him he would have to trust and work together with Manuel so they could have a chance of surviving. The next day, Jack is frustrated that the coconuts don't taste good. Jennifer is doubtful and tells him they just needed to be right. Jack sees Manuel and asks him how fishing went. Manuel replies there wasn't much unless he goes further away. Jack decides to let Jennifer go with Manuel, even when Jennifer secretly disagrees to this. He tells his wife he wants to mourn his friends and doesn't want to see Manuel around. Although Jennifer agrees to this, she stops away from him in anger. When Manuel and Jennifer returns later in the evening, they notice the hut they built had been separated by Jack. Jennifer was disappointed at Jack, but Jack cared less. Manuel decided to take the little shape Jack gave to him, while Jack still felt paranoid because maybe his wife and Manuel were secretly seeing each other. Jennifer is upset and leaves him alone. After Manuel makes the dinner, Jack joins both of them. He also makes fun of Manuel, but Manuel retaliates. Jack is forced to warn Manuel to stay away from his wife, even though Manuel makes fun of Jack and says he had always fantasized himself and Jack's lived together. Jack threatens to keep as far away from Manuel, while Manuel decides to never feed Jack anymore before they go separate ways. Jennifer is disappointed in Jack because he doesn't have what it takes to feed them both. The next day, Jack and Jennifer goes out to find what to eat. Jennifer luckily gets a crab and shows Jack, who is happy with her efforts. But when Jack sees the large fish Manuel caught, he goes to the reef even when Jennifer told him he needed goggles. Jennifer goes to meet Manuel and asks if he was mad at her too. Manuel says he isn't and she should have some food. He told Jennifer that from the very first time he saw her, he wanted to kiss her. Jennifer doesn't like this, so she walks away. Although she refuses, she finally accepted when Manuel promises to never tell Jack that he gave her food. Jennifer is eating the last of Manuel's fish when Jack returns. Jack tries to light a fire from a stick and suddenly smell fish on the wood. Jennifer denies it might have been from the other day, but Jack knows she was lying. She finally lies that she stole Manuel's fish and didn't keep any for Jack because he would act unfairly. Jack tells Manuel that his wife stole a fish from him, but Manuel wasn't bothered and says he would have given her if she wanted. The next day Jack and Jennifer were seen again hunting for crabs. When Jack sees smoke from the hut, he knows Manuel stole his lighter, so he stomps angrily at Manuel to confront him. Manuel tells him a lightning sparked and fell on his stick, so it created a fire. Jack kicks sand to Manuel's fish, then Manuel retaliates by hitting Jack with a stick on his face. A fight breaks out between the two. Manuel rushes to grab his fishing pole and plans to hurt Jack if he continues. Jack is angered and blames Manuel for their shipwreck, saying Manuel did it so he could end up with his wife. Manuel denies, but Jack takes Manuel's fish and leaves. Some days pass. Jack makes his own fishing rod, but steals Manuel's goggles so he could fish with it. When Jennifer wakes up and looks for Jack, she goes to Manuel to tell him they can't be friends anymore. Manuel isn't bothered but gets furious when he learns that Jack took his goggles. He plans to kill Jack. Jennifer cries and tries to beg him to stop, but their conflict soon turns into a hormone sandwich. Immediately Manuel pins Jenny to the floor. After enjoying the sandwich, Jennifer is feeling remorseful and pleads with Manuel not to let Jack find out. When Jack returns, he throws the goggles at Manuel and goes to tell Jenny how excited he was because he caught a fish. Moments later, Jennifer tells him that Manuel was furious that Jack took his goggles. Jack asks what Jennifer did to comment well. But when she does give Jack a good answer, Jack realizes they had sex. Jack is devastated and pulls Jennifer by the head, throwing her like a fish at Manuel. Immediately Manuel consoles her, but Jack disappears from the seashore. A couple days passed, and Jenny spent most of her time looking for Jack, who already found himself a new home and made himself goggles from things around him. Manuel is worried about Jennifer and tells her to stop searching for Jack. He decides to dance with her. While they dance, Jack is watching them secretly from afar. A while later, Jack goes fishing when he sees a boat at the bottom of the sea. He manages to pull it to the surface. By doing so, he drew the concern of Jennifer and Manuel to him. Manuel offers to help him, but Jack cuts him off, including refusing to help of his wife. Sometime later, Jenny goes to meet Jack when he is trying to repair the boat. Their conversation doesn't go well because Jack is still heartbroken by Jennifer's action, so he sends her away. That same night, while in the water, Jennifer and Manuel have another round of hormone sandwich where they both plot to take Jack's boat and leave him on the island to little or no means of survival. The next day, after Jack has finished checking his boat, he leaves to go fishing. Manuel sees Jack leaves and hurries to inform Jennifer, who was fast asleep, to wake up and prepare because they would be stealing Jack's boat. When Jack comes out of the sea, he sees Jennifer and Manuel trying to snatch his boat. He rushes to stop them, but he wasn't fast enough. They already got on the boat and sailed away. Jack was left with nothing but frustration knowing that they stole his boat, and worse, he wasn't able to do anything about it. After a while, Jack sat quietly and watched the open sea like he was expecting something. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Manuel has sailed far off the island when they realized that Jack had not completely fixed the boat because it was still leaking. Jennifer quickly realized that Jack let them take it on purpose because he wasn't finished with the boat, and he wanted to kill them. They had no option then to abandon the boat and swim back to the island. When Jennifer arrived at the island, Jack was already waiting for her. She was filled with rage and cursed at Jack for trying to kill them, but they were the ones who left him on the island to die. Jack doesn't bother and asked for Manuel but Jenny doesn't know. She explained they got separated as they swam back to the island. When Jack sees Manuel on the other side, he casually walks to him with his handcrafted spear. Jenny cries as she tried to stop him, so Jack had to push her away. When Manuel sees Jack's weapon, he tries to run, but Jack throws the spear Manuel and it penetrates his back, causing Manuel to spill out of mouth full of blood. They both fight, but Manuel is able to hit Jack with a rock and uses the opportunity to finally run away from Jack. Jennifer still curses at Jack for trying to kill Manuel when he was exhausted, but Jack remains quiet and watches Manuel with a hint of comus as he ran. At night, Jack ties Jennifer up and paints himself as a tribalist, promising to do some harmful things to her. While he speaks to her, Manuel appears from behind with a bamboo stick, hitting it at Jack's back. Jack falls to the ground and Jennifer frees herself from Jack's confinement. Manuel uses his stick to attack Jack. They both have a fierce battle with weapons. Manuel manages to push Jack into the campfire Jack made. This results in Jack leaving them and dashing quickly into the sea to quench the fire while Manuel escapes with Jennifer. Simultaneously, Maria still continued her voodoo ceremony for many days. Known to none what she really did, but in all it affected Manuel in every way. In the morning, Jennifer tries to make Manuel hot, but he refuses and wishes to make weapons and fight Jack back. Jack goes on a search of the two backstabbers inside the island. He follows the trails they left behind as they ran. Meanwhile, Maria is still performing her rituals. With this act, she mysteriously leaves the after images of Jennifer so Jack could see them and chase them. But in reality, they were farther from him. Maria slaughters a chicken in her ceremony. In this actions causes the blood of Manuel, who had on top a tree, drop on Jack's face, revealing their position too. Jack sees them and throws his spear Manuel, who loses balance and falls to the ground. He prepared to end Manuel with his knife, but suddenly Jennifer jumps at his back and prevents him from doing this. While he struggled to detain his wife, who tried to stab him with his own knife, Manuel picks up a rock to crush Jack, but it takes a huge turn when he remotely falls to the ground. Inhaling himself on one of Jack's spears, simultaneously, Maria impales Jack's effigy with a spike. Several months has passed, and a family on a yacht explores the island. They see Jennifer in her hut sleeping. Jennifer is happy to see them and leaves with them, taking Jack's lighter along with her. Still broken by the death of Manuel, she ignored the fact that not only her was situated in the island. Jack, who is fishing, sees her leaving on the yacht and calls out, but Jenny, who had also stolen his lighter, so he could not make any more fires, finally has her revenge on him by ignoring him, and the family inside the boat cannot hear him. Jack's abandoned on the island, which no one knows how long he will be there. And with that, the movie ends. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more video like this. Thanks for watching this video until the end, and see you guys soon.